Okay, you're all set.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 16, 2021 Economic Development and Culture Community Board meeting. My name is Marissa Mack. I'm the chair of the committee. I hope you are all well. This is our final meeting of the fiscal year. We may be meeting during the summer, but just want to thank all of our members for this year and riding through everything that we've been through, everything that we've all been through this year. So just want to thank you, send a thank you to our committee and our members. This meeting is called to order at 6:38 p.m. tonight. We are joined by District Manager Angel Muscane, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an effective meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. First, no one may speak to the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. And as I'm talking, I'm hearing some background noise, so if you could please also be sure to mute yourself, that would be very helpful as this is being recorded. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Additionally, when a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subject on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and you will be recognized. So with that, Angel, will you be able to take attendance through roll call?
Certainly. Adem Briha. Marissa Mack.
Here.
Giselle Malave.
Here.
Dawn Sanders. Vinnie Torres. Jenny Tromsky.
Here.
Nye Whitaker.
Present.
You have quorum.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Angel. So let's see. Okay, so the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there are no objections, we'll adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Only if you object. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. So in regards to the minutes, the vice chair is still working on those minutes, but they should be distributed shortly, and we will get those out to you for your review. Just as a note, we did distribute and voted on during our full board meeting last month the letter of support for the Caribbean Cultural Center and their use of the space within this area for additional programming. So thank you all for your vote and for hearing Melody and their request. We have moved forward with that initiative. So again, thank you all for your help and your support with that. So moving on to announcements, I just wanted to note that I attended the public safety, actually sit on public safety, the public safety committee, and had the opportunity to hear from MTA, who is also on the call this evening, regarding the Park Avenue viaduct replacement, not to be confused with the Second Avenue subway. The viaduct, which runs above ground, is in need of dire replacement. And so this is going to be a big impact to the Park Avenue area and those surrounding businesses, as well as developments that are in that vicinity. Additionally, it will impact the businesses that are below, such as the Urban Green Garden and some of the DOT homes for sanitation and parking garages. So there is going to be a bit of a impact, obviously, all around. MTA has been great about coming forward, with this information and sharing that they are looking to work with the community in regards to ensuring that there is minimal impact. Obviously, there still will be a great impact to the community, but they are having discussions. This is now a year out. I believe it's supposed to really go underway in 2022. And so we are looking at all areas of how this is going to impact the community, what we can do to work with the MTA on this project. They have offered up that they will be looking to work with some of the schools within our area on STEM projects, incorporating some of what they do into, I believe, either current curriculum or extended curriculum for some of the schools in the area. And there's talks of possibly looking into ways to incorporate artwork from some of our community artists, which we've been talking about as well on our committee, and how to do that more succinct within our direct district. So these conversations will continue. We obviously would love to hear more in terms of the direct economic impact, but we know that this is something that's needed for the safety of our community. And so again, happy to hear that MTA is having discussions with us, and we will continue to have these discussions with them as the project moves forward. So are there any other general announcements at this time before we move on to the agenda? Okay, so now I'm going to open up the floor to Carrie King in Uptown Grand Central. Carrie, I know you're doing, if you're on, I know you're doing double duty. Is she here, Angel? Don't see.
I ran into Carrie a little bit earlier when I was picking up my vegetables, and she's actually having some phone issues. Like she had planned to call in, but like her phone is basically defunct. She said she was going to try to run home and jump on, but clearly she's in transit or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. No, absolutely understood. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to move it. Actually, if we don't mind, I'd like to recognize Pablo and Union Settlement, and then we'll go to the Fresh Air Fund if Pablo is on, or Jackie, if you have anything that you'd like to present on behalf of Union Settlement.
Thanks, Marissa. I can't, is Pablo on? I know that he had a few things. I mean, I have some stuff, but maybe Pablo can go first. If not, I'll just let you know what I have.
Sure. I do not see him on the call as of yet, but when he gets on, maybe later on, I will definitely have him present. But if there's something that you would like to move forward with on behalf of Union Settlement, please feel free to do so.
Sure. Okay. Just this is more information of our events that we have coming up. Our next cash mob is going to be at Mojo Moose Bar on Sunday, July 18th at 1:30. They are located at 177 East 100th Street, and it's in collaboration with local churches. Jackie, who is the owner of Mojo Dessert, her church is taking the lead on this. It's called Church of the Living Hope. And we also work with 3 other churches, Metro Hope Church, Redeemer Church, and Church of Resurrection. So that is on Sunday, July 18th at 1:30. Then we started our book clubs. We had our first book club at Dear Mama, and we featured an East Harlem author, East Harlem artist at an East Harlem business. With the intent of driving business to with the intent of having the local business, put more money into their pockets for the day. So we had our last one on Dear Mama, and we had about 25 people. We were hoping to have more, but they made about $400, which was good. Our next book club is going to be a JVS project space with Julio Valdez. He is a local artist. On Sunday, July 25th at 3 p.m. The author and the artist are still pending confirmation. I will hopefully have confirmation by the end of next week. And our book club after that is going to be in September. on Sunday, September 12th at 3 p.m. at La Marqueta with Amuse Bouche, Sprinkle Splash, and artist Carmen Ayala. And we are also in discussion of having a book club with El Museo del Barrio with our Open Culture Street. There's nothing really I could speak about now because it's literally pending, is all I can say. And then we are bringing back our East Harlem Nights since COVID restrictions have been lifted. It's going to be Friday, September 24th from 6 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the Union Settlement Garden on 104th Street. And I am accepting applications. I should be able to send applications out by the end of next week. So if you know anybody, I'll send it to you, or I'll send it to Carly, actually. If you would like to distribute the application for us, that would be a very big help. And
Yes,
that's
thank
it.
you.
I had a few things. That's short.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, if you could send over the information to Carly and also to Angel, I'm sure that they will be able to distribute that to our community to assist you in obtaining applications. So thank you for your work with Union Settlement. Okay, so now we can move to the Fresh Air Fund, and I believe we have Maria.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming and presenting on how you will be working with our community this summer. So please, the floor is yours.
Can I share my screen or do you just want me to speak? That's fine with me.
Yes, please. If you have the ability, you should have the share screen option at the bottom of your screen.
Okay. So give me 1 second. So for those of you who know the Fresher Fund, it's a nonprofit organization that has been here since 1877. Okay, let me see if I could do it now. So the Fresher Fund has been here since 1877. We serve over 1.8 million children, and we're still counting. We're well known for providing free, safe, and fun sleepaway summer experiences to New York City children. We are known for providing the Sleepaway Summer Camp in the Friendly Towns, which is a host family program. However, last year and this year, because of the pandemic, we have to make the hard decision of put those programs in standby and just innovate. And despite the challenges that COVID presented, we continue to provide free, safe, and fun engagement activities for our New York City kids. We are aimed to keep the magic of the summer alive through virtual and outdoor programs. The Fresher Fund children also participate in youth year-round leadership and educational programs because a summer can last a lifetime. So for the in-person programs that we will have, we're taking safety measures such as taking temperature on a daily basis. We will require for kids and for staff to wear their mask, also maintaining the social distancing, hand sanitizing, and I know all the restrictions are lifted, but the Fresher Fund will continue to have those safety measures just to make sure that, our kids are safe. Parents must complete a daily checklist to ensure the participants are symptoms-free. In the program, if the kids don't have a mask, the program will provide them a mask and, with the hand sanitizing as well. In order to participate, the kids have to live and go to school in New York City. We have different programs starting for ages 5 to 17. And the application is online and they have to live in one of the 5 boroughs. And we strongly recommend families to apply, but we're also going to the community. The program that we're bringing to East Harlem is the Fresher Fund Summer Spaces. This program is for boys and girls ages 5 to 12. There are 3, we have 2 sessions during the day. The first one is 9 a.m. to 11:45, and the second one is 1:15 to 4, Monday to Thursday. This is a neighborhood's locations. Children can participate in arts, crafts, project STEMs. They can play soccer, have hula hoop contests, and more. So we will have 3 different hours. So it's 2 sessions, and each session has is 3 different activities. And the summer spaces was created with a very generous support from Bloomberg Philanthropy, the Ford Foundation, and the JPB Foundation in last summer. The locations that we're going to be in East Harlem, we're actually going to partner. We're going to be in 104 between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, and also in Warner Houses. So 451 East, I think is 119th Street. Over here we have a 120, but I know it's 119th Street. And families can still sign up for the programs. We started our registration since April, but we're continue to accept applications until all our spots are full. The family can come and create a portal. They can come to our portal, create an account, and over there they can see the status of the application. They can submit the application. They can pick the dates, the programs, and also their locations. Aside of these programs, we also have the virtual summer camp, which is Fresh Air Everywhere. We also have the Teen Academy, which is a program for teens ages 13 to 17 that will not only gain new skills, it's a credentialing program. We partner with different universities, and they also receive a stipend. So I'm not sure if there are any questions, and this is just a quick overview about the Fresh Air Fund.
So Maria, thank you so much for presenting, and please tell Bindu, thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much. Carrie was great in connecting and just letting us know that these programs will be available this summer. So just a few questions before I open it up to the rest of the members here. This is completely free for the students, right? This is a completely free program?
Yes, it's a free program to all the residents. The only requirement, well, there's only 2 requirements. One is they have to have the age by that they participate in the program. So if they are 4 right now, but they'll be 5 in the summer when we start the sessions, that it starts from July 6th to August 19th. If they turn 5, then they can participate. And the second one is that they must live and go to school in New York City.
Okay. And so I guess in regards to, are there any income restrictions in terms of, how much the parents make or anything of that nature?
Not this year. The Fresh Air Fund has been very generous last year and this year. And because what's going on with the pandemic, we decided to lift that requirement, at least for this year.
Okay.
For last year and this year, I'm not sure what's going to happen next year, but.
Right. But for this year's program, okay, no income. Okay,
No
that's
income
really good to
requirement.
hear. That's great to hear. And then just a few more. When it rains, so what happens? Is there no programming? Is there an alternate site, or what's the protocol for that?
So we're still working on the protocol. I can tell you what we did last year. Safety will be our #1 priority. So we don't want the kids to be in the rain or getting sick. So we will cancel the sessions, and we will inform the parents ahead of time. It depends, because many times it was scheduled to rain at 10 a.m. We went there to the session. It didn't rain until 4, so we didn't have to stop the programming. However, if it rains, yes, we will stop the program.
Okay, so that's just, I guess, for parents too, that's just something to consider, because if they're at work and then it starts raining, how do they accommodate for that? But that's a part of.
Oh yes, we will let them know in advance.
Okay.
The communication is always there with the parents. We usually do texting on a daily basis to remind them, and also to if there's any changes, we let them know in advance.
Perfect. And then one last question for you, since you are operating in East Harlem, obviously I know that you have an application process, but is there any preference for obviously individuals that are living within this catchment area?
So that's a great question. We actually partner with Union Settlement, so we can promote our programs, and we're coming also to the community to do more outreach to make sure that we serve the kids that are living in the area. So that's our main goal.
That's perfect. I would also offer, and I'm not sure if you spoke with them yet, but the MAP program with Wagner, if you are affiliated with them.
I think we are working with them.
Okay, that would be great, because they're doing a lot of work, and to funnel some children from that sector would be great. So, okay, so now I will open it up. Giselle, I see your hand.
And if anybody else wants to partner or partner up, or they want a presentation, or they want me to send you the application, I'd be more than happy to connect with everyone.
Perfect. If you could drop your information in the chat, that would be great too. Giselle?
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. My only question was, how many application slots do you have open for the kids who want to apply in East Harlem at the moment?
So we have not started placing yet, so there's still spots available. Our goal is to have 30 kids in the morning and 30 kids in the afternoon, and families can do a mix of, 2 weeks of summer spaces, maybe 2 weeks of the Fresh Air Fun Everywhere, which is the virtual summer camp, and maybe 2 weeks of our Friendly Town program. So if they can visit the website, and so like that, they can have a whole summer. So at this time, we have not started placing, so we still have slots.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I'll be more than happy to answer.
Are there any other questions? If so, please raise your hand. I can recognize you. And you can ask it out loud. Okay, Maria, so seeing none, thank you for presenting.
Yes, let me just say that the program, it's free. The Summer Spaces program is for boys and girls ages 5 to 12, and you're still on time to submit an application. You can go to freshairfund.org, and you can see all the programs that the Fresh Air Fund has available. I will post my information on the chat.
Please, and also if you have any flyers or information that we can also distribute out, that would be great. You can send them to myself and Angel.
I will send them to you, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Excuse me,
much.
Melissa, I have a question.
Oh, okay. Is that Beverly?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Good evening to everyone. Great presentation. Good evening, Madam Chair. My question is regarding jobs. Are there any opportunities for community youth to work with the Fresh Air Fund as counselors?
Yes, they are. We actually advertise it. We send it to our partners to make sure that we are hiring from our community as well. We have some spots, but we're almost done hiring. I have to be honest, because we will start training as soon as next week. But we have few spots available, and we did the outreach in the community because we want to make sure that the faces that our kids look, are familiar faces.
Oh, okay. And with that information, if you still have any more slots, I would like to get that information to see if I get some kids in my neighborhood that might be interested in joining you guys before next week. I know it's a short notice.
Yes. As I said, you can just, I can, if you send me your email, like I can send the information to them so they can send it to you, but they can also visit the website.
Okay.
And all the information, all the positions available, not only for the summer spaces, but for all the other programs as well.
Okay, so I'll go to the website. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Eric, did you have a? He had his hand up. Okay. Giselle, did you have another question, or was your hand just remaining raised? Okay, so I think we're all set, Maria. Thank you so much for presenting, and we will look for your email with additional information.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Angel, if you could put the agenda back on the screen. Thank you. So next we have a presentation on the Las Raíces multi-site residential development project. Hopefully I said that correctly. And we will hear from Chris Carrillo and Jonathan Cruz.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Hi, this is Jonathan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
and great background.
Great, thank you. This is actually a project we did in East Harlem, some community artwork that we got done, so I'm particularly proud of it.
Perfect.
Thank you. So, I'm Jonathan Cruz. I'm with MDG Design and Construction. I am a project manager for one of the owners and developers of this project we'll be presenting today. And I'm joined today by Chris Cirillo of Ascendant Neighborhood Development, a local organization in East Harlem. And we're going to be presenting Las Raíces. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and I'll run through an update we have for the team on our project. I think this will be our fifth or sixth time in front of this board for this project. So I think one update we wanted to give before we get into this is the project is currently in the ULURP process, and we'll give more update about timing in the presentation. So we have updates prior to the vote on the land use committee about the economic development aspects of the project. Can you see my screen okay at this point? Perfect. So
Yeah.
I'll get started with the presentation at this point. So again, to reintroduce myself, I'm Jonathan Cruz with MDG Design and Construction, a project manager working on the Las Raíces East Harlem project. And we're working on this in partnership with HPD and our partner and co-developer, Ascendant Neighborhood Development. And Las Raíces East Harlem is a 100% affordable housing new construction development that's located in East Harlem, New York. Specifically, we're going to give another general project overview, and we can also go into some design updates as well. But I would like to just further define what Las Raíces is. Like I mentioned, it's the new construction of 4 buildings across 4 scattered sites throughout East Harlem. So on the screen, I have a map of the 4 sites where they are located in East Harlem. And what this project is going to create is 83 apartments of new, high quality, affordable housing that's funded by HPD. And it's also going to include 10,740 square feet of community facility space. The community facility spaces are going to be located at the ground floor and second floor of Park Avenue. That's 1761 Park Avenue. And also at 303 East 102nd Street. That's on the ground floor at that space. We are currently in the pre-development and pre-construction process for East Harlem. So we're working with HPD and our development team and design team to finalize the project design as we're going through ULURP. And we are going with the proposed use action, that is the disposition of city-owned property. As I mentioned before, there's co-developers for this project, MDG and Ascendant. To just give a little bit more background of the co-development team, I'd like to introduce Chris Cirillo to talk about Ascendant Neighborhood Development. Hey, Chris.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us this evening. We're happy to be here to present to the Economic Development and Culture Committee about the Las Raíces project. So those of you who may not be familiar with Ascendant, we're a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1988. We're based in East Harlem on East 116th Street between First and Pleasant Avenue. And the map that you see on your screen is showing you the sites of all of our projects. So over the last 33 years, we've developed over 800 affordable apartments in 28 different projects. So the green dots on the screen are our existing buildings. And we have over 300 additional affordable apartments in our pipeline in 3 different projects, one of which is the Las Raíces project that we're going to be discussing this evening, and that Jonathan has already provided a little bit of an overview about. Beyond our work in affordable housing development and preservation, we're also have been very involved in the East Harlem neighborhood planning process, in the rezoning, and we also are a member of Landmark East Harlem, so we've been working on preservation initiatives in the neighborhood. And additionally, we're also a participant in Friends of La Marqueta. So you're talking earlier about the Park Avenue Viaduct reconstruction project. So, one of our sites in this Las Raíces project is on Park Avenue and is going to be adjacent to that reconstruction project. So we're definitely paying a lot of attention to that and the impacts that's going to have in the neighborhood. So that's a quick overview about Ascendant, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jonathan to introduce MDG.
Great, thanks, Chris. Yes, and MDG is co-developing this project with Ascendant, and we have 30 years of experience across several different states as general contractor, developer, and property manager as well. We've completed projects with New York City Housing Authority, the New York State Homes and Community Renewal, as well as HPD before. Specifically in East Harlem, we completed the Ascendant Heritage Project that Chris mentioned, which is the redevelopment of 21 buildings, 359 apartments throughout East and Central Harlem. And we also worked on Uptown 6, a project consisting of 82 apartments and 6 buildings in Central Harlem that we also completed with HPD. And we also are currently engaged in a redevelopment of Williamsburg houses with the New York City Housing Authority. That's 1,621 apartments in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, that should be closing later this year. But I think basically what Ascendant and MDG do, we strictly do affordable housing. We don't do anything market rate. And that's what we're proposing to continue to do with Las Raíces. And what we're really looking to do with Las Raíces, I think, is just respond to some of the issues in the affordability crisis. So specifically, we know, Community District, Manhattan Community District 11's fiscal year 2021 statement of community needs identifies affordable housing as the most pressing issue in Community Board 11. And just in general across the city, we know majority of the households, I'm sorry, not majority, but we are seeing an increase of households that are rent burdened. And I think as of 2017 in East Harlem, it was 38% of all Community District 11 households were considered rent burdened. So meaning they pay more than a third of their income on rent. So what we wanted to do with Las Raíces is propose a project that directly solves or helps contribute towards the efforts we need to work towards the solving of the affordability crisis by delivering high quality, affordable housing to the residents of East Harlem. So specifically how we're targeting to do that is having all the apartments are going to be income restricted with deep affordability. So we're showing some income affordability tiers that the project will feature on the screen now. So we're going to have income bands for formerly homeless households and families. So incomes between 0 and 30% AMI, as well as those that are extremely low income, so 0 to 30% AMI as well. Together, that'll be about 27% of the apartments. Then the other portion of the apartments, affordability levels will be very low income. So that's between 31 and 50% AMI. That'll be about 21% of the apartments. And then 52% of the apartments as we currently have it configured will be for low income households and individuals. So that's between 80% and 51% of the AMI. So basically this is all income restricted and deep affordability. We think this will be affordable to East Harlem families. In addition, the project's also going to be complying with mandatory inclusionary housing at the Park Avenue site due to the zoning there. And we also will feature homeless set-aside apartments across all sites. And on the next slide, I'll give you a breakdown of the distribution amongst the buildings for each of these income levels and homeless set-aside apartments. And in addition, the project's going to be financed by 9% low-income housing tax credit funding. So we will be receiving those tax credits as part of the funding sources. And it also have a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. We try to maximize the amount of larger bedrooms that we can get in the projects to also be able to support families in East Harlem. So on a previous presentation we gave to the community board, there was a question about distribution amongst the 4 sites. So what we did is created this chart to give more detail about how we're currently thinking about the distribution. So the top chart just basically shows the unit sizes. So studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, and how they are scattered across. And you'll see we have 21 studios, 35 one-bedrooms, 22 two-bedrooms, and 5 three-bedrooms across all 4 sites. And you can see how they're scattered amongst the 4 buildings. And then the chart below is where we break out the different AMI levels and where the units are currently located throughout the site. And you'll see an even distribution. We try to maximize the diversity in all of the buildings. And we have the formerly homeless units as well, distributed across all 4 buildings. The next item I wanted to touch on for the project was our community outreach plan. So we showed this breakdown of AMIs and the households we're trying to target, but we also are going to follow Community Board 11's Affordable Housing Community Preference Outreach Guidelines, as well as partner with a housing ambassador. This project will have a community preference that we're maximizing with HPD. And we've done this before. We know there's 3 local housing ambassadors, the 116th Street Blocks Association, Hope Community in East Harlem, Council for Community Improvement, I believe. So we'll look to partner with one of them to market directly to East Harlem residents and households. We also had a good conversation with council members and the borough president, and the borough president had a good recommendation of how we could work with her office to directly engage households throughout East Harlem, whether through mailing or whatnot. So I think we'll have a good team together to directly target East Harlem households, and also make sure we're working with your team and following those guidelines and maximizing the outreach and amount of individuals who are able to apply for these households. In addition, for the homeless set-aside apartments, all referrals are going to be conducted through DHS. There was a question on our previous presentation about how the logistics of the homeless set-aside referrals will work. I don't think we got the full confirmation with working with HPD on this, so I think we're still working to follow up on the referrals. And specifically, the question was if there will be a community preference for homeless referrals. That I don't have an answer for yet, so we'll continue to follow up on that. And the last item I wanted to discuss today was our MWBE and Hire NYC local hiring plans. So specifically for MWBE, we're definitely participating in MWBE build-up program with the goal of exceeding participation requirement for construction. MDG specifically as general contractor in East Harlem for the Ascendant Heritage Project, we did exceed our MWBE goals. So just to recap what we were able to accomplish there with HPD and Ascendant, we had a goal of $3,002,929 for MWBE contracting. We contracted $3,790,000, so we exceeded it by $787,000. That was for the Ascendant Heritage Project. For Uptown 6, where we were general contractor as well, we also exceeded our MWBE goal. We had a goal of $1,897,000. We contracted $2.6 million, so we exceeded by another $700,000 there as well. And one project I didn't mention earlier that we recently completed, MDG completed, was 640 Riverside. That's on the west side, 141st Street in Riverside. And for that project, we also worked with HPD and exceeded our MWBE build-up program goals. So we had a goal of 4.2 million to be contracted, and we contracted 5.9, so we exceeded by 1.7 million there as well. So for Las Raíces, we expect the same. We will utilize the MWBE subcontractors and partners we have, and as we did for our previous projects with HPD, and specifically in Harlem, we will continue to exceed the MWBE goals. And similar to the hiring and the local contractors and subcontractors that we'll look to work with and also hire locally. Specifically for this MDG, we have a lot of experience with our NYCHA projects. Like I mentioned earlier, we're working on the PACT redevelopments. So for Batances houses, which is the background I'm representing here on my Zoom screen, we were able to hire 52 public housing residents. Most of them directly on our team, but the contractors did hire a couple to contribute to that number. We're really happy with what we're able to get there. Like we also had 13.6 million in MWBE, which we exceeded our goal by multiple millions. And then in Ocean Bay, is a similar story. That's a 1,495 apartment complex with NYCHA that we completed in 2018. And that one we had 88 local hires, specifically in Far Rockaway, Queens, 88 hires. That one, I think we were able to exceed due to our partnerships locally. So we're really fortunate to be working with Ascendant for Las Raíces. And also I think the housing ambassador that we have will play a big role in helping us meet our local hiring goals, based on our formula for success on our NYCHA sites. So that's our plan. And I think we're definitely going to be prioritizing the local hiring here, as well as working with, I know there's a local Jobs Plus program in a NYCHA building, I think on 114th Street, that we'll look to gear residents to for free OSHA 40 training prior to construction starting, because there's no reason for qualifications to be an issue. So we want to be able to also, I think working with the housing ambassador, we also be helpful in sending that information out when we send out information about, general marketing. But with that, that's the end of my section. So now I'd like to hand it over to Chris Cirillo just to talk through Las Raíces and its design. So Chris, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And just clarification, Jonathan mentioned the Ascendant Heritage Project. And just for those who might not be familiar, that's a substantial rehabilitation project that we completed in collaboration with MDG, that we rehabilitated 21 of the 28 buildings in our portfolio that we initially acquired from the city and private owners back in the 1990s, and have owned and managed as affordable housing in East Harlem for the last couple of decades. And we did a major overhaul of all 21 of those buildings with MDG that wrapped up early last year, just around the time that the pandemic started. And as part of that project, improved all of the buildings, did exterior and interior renovations, and extended the affordability of that project for decades to come. So we have a long-standing relationship with MDG, and they're very familiar with working with us and working in East Harlem. And their management affiliate, Concord Management, manages all of Ascendant's properties in East Harlem, as well as properties for several other landlords. So just wanted to add that in as well before we jump into the Las Raíces sites. So some folks may have seen this before. Jonathan, you can go ahead, go to the next slide. Apologies to Angel, who I think has seen this presentation 6 times now for variations on it. But so the
Love it.
next time Angel gets to do it, he gets to do it. But, we're just going to keep doing it until Angel gets to do it.
I was going to say, Angel, is there something new every time? Is there,
We try.
They keep changing the fonts. That's what they do.
When we do this, when we do this the next time, we're going to hide a picture of Angel in there. We're going to have
and then ask if you've seen it.
Just make sure I'm paying attention.
I know. All right. So anyway, I don't want to keep anybody too long, but we have 4 sites to go through. So the project, as Jonathan mentioned, is 83 total apartments across the 4 sites. It will be complying with Enterprise Green Communities. Obviously, it's a big goal of ours and MDG's to make the buildings as sustainable and energy efficient and resilient as possible. 3 of the 4 sites are actually located in parts of the neighborhood that are in the flood zone. And so, we're addressing that through the design of the buildings. And I'll talk about that as we get to each of the sites coming up. Residents in each of the buildings will have access to common laundry facilities. We'll have bike storage at Park Avenue and 118th Street. And actually an update since the last time we did this is we think we found a place to put bike storage for residents at the 117th Street site as well. So we'll have to update that. 2 of the sites have common rear yards that'll be landscaped and available for resident use. Those are the sites at 117th and 118th Streets. And then there'll be an exterior rooftop terrace at the Park Avenue site that'll also be available for residents in that building. And as Jonathan mentioned, 2 of the sites have community facility spaces, and we'll talk a little bit more about those when we get to those specific site discussions. So go ahead to the next slide, please, Jonathan. So going south to north, Our first site is 303 East 102nd Street. This is a site on the north side of 102nd between 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue. It's currently a vacant lot that's fenced and under HPD jurisdiction. Next slide. And we're proposing a small infill building, 5 stories. Adjacent to the west is an existing 5-story walk-up tenement building, and adjacent to the east that you see part of here in this elevation is new construction, relatively newly constructed mid-rise affordable apartment building. So our building will be 5 stories. This one will have 6 apartments, a mix of studios and 2 bedrooms. This is one of the sites that has ground floor community facility space, about 2,400 square feet. Laundry room for resident use, and the building will have a green roof. Because of the community facility space that's on the ground floor here, there isn't a backyard in this building. So that's one distinction about this site that's a little bit different from some of the other sites that we'll talk about. Next slide. Okay, the second site is at 338 East 117th Street. This is the south side of 117th between 1st Avenue and 2nd Avenue, closer to 1st, actually just west of 1st. The site is currently vacant. Have to update these photos the next time we do this. So it had been used as a staging area for the adjacent project that has resulted in the rehabilitation of the long vacant school building that's at the corner of 1st and 117th Street. That construction has wrapped up, and now the site is just fenced off and currently vacant under city jurisdiction. Next slide. And here we are also proposing an infill building, 5 stories. This building will have 7 apartments, studio, 4 1-bedrooms and 2 3-bedroom apartments. There'll be a common laundry room available for residents on the ground floor. This building has a rear yard that will be available for all the residents in the building to utilize, and also a green roof. That's a common theme across all the projects. And again, the context on this street is to the west, or to the right if you're looking at your screen, is a series of existing 5-story walk-up older tenement buildings, and to the east of our site, or to the left of your screen, is the recently rehabilitated school building. Next slide, Jonathan. The third site is located at 505-507 East 118th Street. So this is the north side of 118th Street, east of Pleasant Avenue, and this street dead ends at the rear of East River Plaza. And this site is currently occupied by a portion of the Pleasant Village Community Garden, which you see on the screen. Next slide, Jonathan. And this shows an overview of this part of the block, and outlined in red is the current footprint of the community garden. The permanent portion of the community garden is the portion that's shaded in green that will remain, and the portion that has been temporary use of the site is the portion that's shaded in brown down at the bottom right of this image. That's the portion where our new building will be built. Next slide, please. And here we're proposing a 6-story building. This is the second largest building in the cluster. It has 18 apartments, or will have 18 apartments, a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms. This building will have an elevator, laundry room up on the 6th floor, landscaped rear yard, which will back up to the community garden, also a green roof. And I should have noted when I spoke about 117th Street, the previous site, and it's also relevant to this site, is because these 2 sites are in the flood zone, we have to have mechanical rooms that are located at the ground floor. So where you see a space on the ground floor here in the middle that doesn't have windows, it's because there's a mechanical room behind it. And so, we're still refining the plans for actually all 4 of the buildings. And one of the things that we're specifically focusing in on now is the ground floor treatment and how to kind of mitigate that blank wall situation, and whether that becomes a location for a piece of public art, a mural or something else, or potentially working with our landscape architecture team, coming up with kind of a green solution that helps to soften that. Those are some of the things that we're working on right now. So
Well,
as
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yep.
we're just gonna have to speed through a little bit of the
Sure.
presentation.
Yep, no problem.
If you don't mind to,
Yep.
to
Okay.
I guess the next section.
Yep, no problem. All right. Okay, keep going,
Yeah,
Jonathan.
we can, we
We'll
can.
skip
Yeah.
through, skip through. Okay, so the last site, just really quickly, the last site is 1761 Park Avenue, another garden site. This shows you the development site in brown, the permanent garden site in green. Next slide, Jonathan. This is the largest building, 14 stories, 52 apartments, a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. This building will have community facility space at the ground floor and second floor, which you see on this image, which is showing 122nd Street. Next slide, Jonathan. Okay, and so to the point I was making earlier, a little bit about potential locations for public art. We Ascendant are launching a public art initiative across our whole portfolio, not just these buildings, but existing buildings in our portfolio in the neighborhood. And one of the groups that we're talking to right now is Thrive Collective, which is based in East Harlem. And we've been discussing with them opportunities to work with them. And they work with young people in the neighborhood to work on public art projects. And they've done a lot, several in East Harlem already. And so we're talking with them about possibly incorporating, working with them on public art for some of our buildings. And this shows you the shaded areas on these 2 images show you areas that we're looking at potentially as public art locations. Next slide, Jonathan. Okay, and that's it. So we'll wrap up there, and happy to take any questions, comments, feedback that you all have.
So thank you both
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for keeping me to time. I appreciate it.
No, it's okay. I mean, when you're talking about something that you love doing and that is clearly, impacting the community in a good way, I'm sure you could go on for forever. So, but thank you both for presenting. I too have heard this presentation a number of times, not as much as Angel. He sets the record, but it is great that to hear of this project and to hear all the different ways that you guys have continued to partner with the community on different levels. And I do feel that this is a project that is to be modeled and is to be an example for our community. So thank you both for bringing this forward and on this. I have a few just very minor questions because I do think that you really covered a lot in this. I guess in regards to specific jobs for individuals in our community, I know that you said you were going to partner with some organizations, but I just wasn't sure exactly which ones. I know you spoke about that in regards to construction specifically, and MWBE's and the ability to connect with them. But in regards to specific, other jobs that might be available, how has that been addressed throughout the project? And again, apologies if I missed this. There was a lot of good information.
That's a good question. So thank you for asking that question about jobs that we've made available. So as general contractor, we'll have hiring specifically for the job that we will do, and we'll make all positions available to East Harlem residents and interview residents that apply from East Harlem. There's no necessarily guarantee for a job, but we're guaranteeing interviewing interested East Harlem local residents for positions. And, it's easy to say that, but the way I think we really do that is work with the local groups of which positions are exactly going to be available. So there'd be construction superintendents that would work for our team, but also any contracts that we have. Typically, what we do a NYCHA contract specifically is any contracts over 500,000, we require a local hire from that subcontractor. So we look to do something similar here as well, where any large subcontractors that we have, we'll have a requirement for them to hire and interview local applicants.
I think one thing that the office can do, I'm sure you guys already have many connections, but through some of our local hiring organizations, I think that might be the best way to connect, and then maybe funnel through there, so that you have that connection possibly, if you don't already have that.
Great, yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And I think again, I can speak to the positions we'll have. As for subcontracting positions, it's not totally clear yet, as we don't have those contracts. But once we get to that point, they will be required to market locally for any positions that'll be made available through the project.
Okay, perfect. And then we can also make available to you some of those organizations, so at least you can take a look and you have an idea of where to start. And then just two other questions. One, in regards to navigating now for the construction that will be happening on Park Avenue. How are you navigating that with the upcoming viaduct? I know, Chris, you briefly mentioned Friends of La Marqueta, but like, you know, in regards to buildings and structures over there, how are you navigating the restructuring of the viaduct?
Yeah, a good question. And I think it's still a bit of a work in progress since the MTA is still finalizing their plans and their time frame and their phasing. And you know, our project is in ULURP, assuming that we successfully complete ULURP by the fall, which would be the time frame. That puts us on track to finalize the financing with HPD and potentially close sometime next year in 2022, you know, potentially by June, the end of the city's fiscal year. So then construction would start on our projects. All 4 sites would be in construction at the same time. So that kind of puts us out front of the MTA based on my understanding from the presentations, and Friends of La Marqueta had a presentation from them last Friday. There was a community stakeholder presentation about a week or 2 before that. And it seems like their plan for the reconstruction project is bidding and selecting a team that's going to actually do the work by next year, and then construction starting sometime in 2023 and extending until 2025. And it doesn't seem like they have completely finalized yet whether they're going to start from the northernmost block, which would be 123rd Street, and go south to 115th, or vice versa. Obviously, if they start at 115th and go north, that gives us more time, and we might be done by the time they get to 122nd and 123rd Streets. But I mean, it's definitely something we have to keep an eye on and certainly coordinate with them, because Park Avenue is narrow, and any impacts in the street. I mean, our site is tight to begin with, and is going to be a challenge to build a tall building on a narrow site fronting the viaduct, even leaving aside them doing anything there. So I think there'll definitely be some construction coordination conversations that have to happen if they both happen to be happening at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's just something for us to consider here, and probably to think about even for public safety, because it sounds like if both things are going to be going on at the same time, you know, there's probably going to need to be some sort of discussion with DOT and how that's going to look for transit as everything is going on, right? All for the good of the community, but still, you know, we're going to have to navigate around everything going on. So something to consider. And then one last question quickly, the community space that you have available in your buildings, how do you plan on using that? You know, who is that going to be available to? And, you know, how are you going to work around that?
Yeah, so because the project is obviously several years out from completing, we haven't identified specific tenants yet. So there's a small space at 102nd Street, which is really, you know, can only be one tenant. So that 2,400 square feet or so can really be one community facility user. The space at Park Avenue is larger. It's about 8,400 square feet, roughly, spread between the first and second floors of that space. And there is the opportunity at that location to divide that space up. So it's possible that one or more users could take that space. So it could be 2 smaller users, you know, one on the second floor, one on the first floor. It could be divided up, you know, in other different ways. And I think, you know, one of the things that we really want is feedback on and ideas about who, you know, what organizations, what community facility type uses are looking for space, might be needing space within the next couple of years. Obviously, it's not available immediately because the building doesn't exist yet. But, you know, assuming we start in 2022 and complete by 2024, you know, optimistically, the space would then be available at that point. So, you know, we're open to conversations about it, and kind of, you know, I think because we're involved with Friends of La Marqueta, because we kind of, you know, support Uptown Grand Central, because we're kind of very focused on what's happening along Park Avenue. Several of our existing buildings are there. You know, really thinking about what that corridor can become as all the various different sites that are projected for development go forward, and thinking about what's, you know, what uses can support what's already happening there and what might happen there and the market, I think is definitely at the front of our mind, but we're open to any suggestions and recommendations that the committee or the full board or others have about what could go there and who might be looking for space.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. And we will definitely, you know, I know Angel has a ton of resources that he is aware of, and as well as other committee members. So we will be sure to keep in contact with you on, you know, ideas on using that space. Giselle, so sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you for the presentation. I just had one question. I saw in one of the slides that you had like the super units. I saw that like the units for the supers was only 2. So my first question is like in the number of the counting of the apartments for each, do you guys include the supers in that number? And then the second one is there gonna be a super in each building? Cause like that's important, having a super all the time. You know, sometimes things happen or whatever, and then you don't have to call like, you know, you don't have to wait for someone. You could just call the super and he's in-house and he can just, you know, go and help the tenants.
Yeah, so there'll be 2 supers units total for the project. So there won't be 1 super in each building because the smaller buildings are, you know, we would, out of the 83 units, if 4 of them were set aside for supers, it would be a lot of supers for that number of buildings. But what I will say is, you know, we operate right now a portfolio of 28 buildings scattered across mainly East Harlem, but 1 is in Central Harlem. And they range in size from 4 apartments up to 94 apartments. And we have supers who live in some of those buildings, but not in all of them, but they're all near each other. And these sites are all near other buildings that we own and that Concord manages. So, you know, we have coverage across the whole neighborhood. So if there's one building that doesn't have a live-in super, it is, you know, it will be no more than a block or 2 from another building where we do have a live-in super. And so, you know, there will be adequate super coverage and porter coverage for all of the buildings. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Giselle. Are there any other questions? I don't see any additional hands raised, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask at this time. Okay, seeing no additional questions, I want to thank you guys. Also, as a disclosure, Concord also manages my building as well, so didn't know that, and they're great. But thank you guys for presenting and for your work in terms of partnerships and including our community in this conversation and this build out. Please continue this great work. Angel, do you have anything else to add to this presentation or?
No, just to remind folks that this will, you know, of course, be a continuing conversation with the development team, but just in the more nearer term that the board is currently considering the land use application for this and will be voting in July on the application.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Angel, I guess if you could add back to the screen the agenda. Chris and Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
So now we are having a discussion about the 2nd Avenue subway, which is coming rapidly to our community, what this looks like, who it's going to impact, and how we can all work together on this project that's coming forward. So Joe, thank you. This is now your 2nd time coming to us this month. I believe you were at Public Safety earlier.
Well, we were with you for the Park Avenue Viaduct discussion not long. Then in April, we were with the Land Use Committee, I believe, on 2nd Avenue Subway. So it's all MTA all the time. And you and Angel are really getting a debrief on all these projects.
Yes, absolutely. We'll all in, completely all in. So thank you for coming though, and starting this conversation. You know, this is something that the community does need, and we want to make sure as this moves forward that everyone is, you know, involved and able to work together on everything that will happen as this project builds out. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I do just want to make a note. Thank you for presenting. I have to jump off at p.m. And so if we are still in discussions at that time, Giselle and Angel will continue the meeting. But in advance, I do want to say thank you for presenting, and we will be in contact. So please continue with your presentation.
Well, thank you, Chair Mack, and thank you, Community Board 11, for having us. I say us because I'm also joined tonight by Michael Gardner, who is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the MTA. So as I go through a sort of level set for Second Avenue Subway and talk a little bit about what we've done in the community and what we hope to do, then I will turn it over to Michael to talk a little bit more about our diversity numbers and inclusion efforts MTA wide. So we're pleased to have Michael here with us too. And I just would, a couple of housekeeping notes. Second Avenue Subway is not moving that quickly, Chair Mack. So I don't want to mislead anybody to think anything is necessarily imminent. We are buoyed and hopeful with the Biden administration and his insistence on the importance of infrastructure projects. So we are excited about that and hopeful that things will sort of unstuck and get unstuck in Washington, and we can move forward on this project. We do have funding from previous capital plans that allow us to move forward on some of the early elements of this project, which is a good thing. But we don't want to get too far front of the funding situation, because we don't want to find ourselves in a situation like we did in the 1970s. As you all are well aware, that we have existing tunnels, which we plan to repurpose as part of this project, already existing in East Harlem. And we had to go back because of a shortfall in funding there and stop that project. So we're trying to be responsible in our efforts here and make sure that we know that the other shoe is going to drop before we get really going in earnest. But we are hopeful, as I say, between the Biden administration, their emphasis on infrastructure projects and the ability for infrastructure projects to help or jumpstart the economy post-COVID, as well as the stimulus package that they're putting together. So enough of my soliloquy. I'm going to jump into sharing my screen. Let's see, Angel, can you give me permission? What I'll do is briefly for everybody, because I know there's different levels of education and awareness on this particular project. I'm going to go through a brief presentation on a level set of the project, so we're all speaking the same language. I know some of you have already had the benefit of seeing this. So the Second Avenue Subway project will extend the existing Q service that terminates presently at 96th Street. There will be 3 new stations at 106th Street, 116th Street, and 100.
So just one, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but just one note. Could you possibly do presentation mode just so that everything is like on a, yep. Thank you so much.
Let me just get some stuff out of the way here. Yeah, so I can go full screen here. Hang on one second. How's that better? Okay, great. So from an alignment standpoint, as I mentioned, the new stations will be at 106th Street, 116th Street, and we will tie into the existing Lex line. We'll go below the existing Lex line at 125th Street. So there will be one central station there for both of the lines. The existing tunnels that I mentioned are represented in the green in this picture. So there is tunnel work that is the tail tracks of the present phase 1 of Second Avenue Subway that go up to 105th Street. And then that segment between 110 and approximately 115 or 116th Street is the existing tunnel work that was excavated in the 1970s. We're going to repurpose that so that it doesn't go to waste. Not only does it, is it a repurpose of that existing work so that we're utilizing what's already there, but it minimizes the impact on the community. Let's see. Just again, to give you a little sense of what's going to happen from a constructability standpoint, those stations at 106 and 116 are going to largely be cut and cover, which means that we will be doing the work from the street level down. This is dictated by the geology in these areas. So because the area of 106, where the station for 106th Street is going, is largely soil and not hard rock, we have to work from the top down, and we'll have to put in supportive excavation walls so that, much like digging on a beach, the walls don't collapse on each other because you're working in a soft surface. Where we are going to be working on the existing tunnel segment at 116th Street, again, we'll be largely working from the top down because that structure is already there. And we're going to build it out to not only accommodate the running tunnels, but also the station elements. And then at 125th Street, because we're going to be going deep there and underneath the existing Lex line, and because it is firmly, no pun intended, situated within hard rock there, we'll be able to use tunnel boring and some mining there. But we'll start the tunnel boring machine at 125th or 120th Street and run that north and then eventually west at around 124th Street before terminating on the west side for our ancillary structure there. I mentioned ancillary structures. Those are the power and air handling units for these stations. All of these stations are largely configured the same way as you can see in this photo. There are ancillary structures to the north and south or east and west extremes of the station. And then you have the station box proper in the middle. From a federal funding standpoint, where we are in terms of why I'm saying we're not exactly running on this project just yet. The project entered into development in 2016. We completed our NEPA evaluation and supplemental environmental assessment, achieving a FONSI or finding of no significant impact in November of 2018. The project then received a medium-high rating, which is a very good rating by the FTA in February of 2020. And then we issued a NEPA reevaluation in April of 2020, which was approved in August of 2020. From an engineering standpoint, even in spite of COVID, we've continued to advance our preliminary engineering and design on this project. We've completed the FTA's risk and readiness workshops. Well, those were completed in 2019 prior to COVID. We submitted a revised request to enter engineering in September of 2019. Just before things really got bogged down with COVID. And we presently need the FDA to approve that entry into engineering, because even without a fully funded grant agreement, which I'll talk about in a moment, and that's really where we have a degree of confidence that money that we will need to complete this project will be coming. The entry into engineering signifies that things are moving. Right now, we're almost, we're at a standstill from a federal process standpoint while we continue to advance the project where we can here locally. But we really need to enter into that engineering phase of the project so that we know the federal funding discussion is imminent. Some of the things that we're able to move forward on and what I came to you all, or at least to Community Board's Land Use Committee in April about, was some of that early work. We initiated the eminent domain process for a group of properties that we know we're going to need as part of the station areas that I just recently laid out. So where we know we're going to be putting an ancillary structure or an entrance structure, we've identified those properties and we have signaled that we're going to move forward with those discussions with the property owners. We've notified the property owners of their property of interest and an imminent desire to start a discussion on a negotiated settlement for those projects. But we need to legally enter into the eminent domain process as a procedural matter, because what that does is it puts a clock on these discussions so that we can't and the property owners can't drag them out in perpetuity. So we had a public hearing on that process in March, and we've kicked that process off officially. This map here shows you from a location standpoint in blue where some of those properties are of interest are. And like I said, they're largely in the station areas, largely where ancillary structures or entrances will be going, because these are pretty much defined. We know that these are the locations from a constructability standpoint, from a complexity standpoint, and from a a lack of impact standpoint on the surrounding community, where these locations are presently the most viable. Sorry, a little too quickly there. So just to give you a sense of where we are now, we are looking to advance the early utility contract, and that would help us bring on a contractor to basically move the utilities that presently are under the right of way under 2nd Avenue proper and move them temporarily at least off to the sides, so that when we get to the construction phase of the project, we don't run into any problems or curveballs. One of the best practices that we have from the construction phase of 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 1 was that despite very dedicated and in earnest coordination with our city partners like DOT, DEP, Con Edison, this city's grid is very old. The blueprints that we have and that we've been provided are almost 100 years old in some instances, and they don't necessarily reflect where work has been done over the course of the year. Sometimes they are updated, sometimes they're not. And to prevent those inevitable curveballs, and surprises when we get in there and start opening up the street, we are going to do an advanced utility contract so that our contractor can come in and get all that stuff out of the way, much like a surgeon who's going to come in and move what he doesn't need to work on out of the way before he gets into the real crux of the work. Then there will be follow-on contracts, which will be the heavy civil work. That's not going to be, we would hope that we might be having some discussions around that sometime next year. That would be a design build contract. That would encompass contracts 2 and 3, 2 and 3. And then contract 4 would be the mechanicals, electrical and plumbing systems. Those are largely the finishes, the guts of the stations. We would already have the stations built and the entrances built, and then we would come in and do the finalized fit out of all of the stuff, the integral parts of the station. I know that in speaking with Angel, one of the things that we did want to talk a little bit about tonight was jobs information and employment discussion. By and large, historically, federal projects have been barred from geographically restricting our contractors from hiring local. So what that means is I cannot necessarily incent a contractor to hire from the East Harlem community or force them to hire from the East Harlem community if they are working on a federally funded project. So what we have done, we've worked with Community Board 11 and the community at large, the elected officials in the community, to try to find some workarounds so that we can make marriages between the jobs that we know are eventually going to be coming and the folks who need them within this community. So back in 2019, we had executed a very successful jobs information program where we brought out all of the unions. The Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York brought all of their unions out to the Tito Puente Educational Complex. And we had an open house there to make these marriages between interested parties from within the community who are looking for work and the folks who could possibly employ them in the near future. That information event was widely well received. I mean, this was in January of 2019. And when I tell you that it was a freezing day, I believe it was in the single digits that day. And we had a line down the block and around the corner from with folks interested in getting in front of these unions, providing their resumes, and finding out about what kind of jobs and trades will be utilized eventually on the Second Avenue Subway project. So as I mentioned, we did this in coordination with the Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York, New York State Laborers, New York City Transit, LIRR, Long Island Railroad, MTACC at the time, which is now Construction and Development HR, and MTAHQ all provided tables to give information on the jobs that were potentially coming, and then even jobs within the transit system for after these stations are built. And then Manhattan School District 4, we worked with very closely to provide the location and to provide them an update. As I mentioned, this was in January of 2019 at the Tito Puente Educational Complex. We had 15 union affiliated programs there, 5 direct entry programs, and obviously the folks from the MTA. We had very good participation from our local elected officials. Assemblyman Robert Rodriguez was there. At the time, Superintendent Estrella was there. She's no longer the superintendent, but it was a pleasure working with her. We had Nilsa from Community Board 11 who participated in that event, and representative from Senator Serrano's office and Manhattan Borough President Gary Brewer's office. There were over 430 people who came out to that event from the community. And like I said, I'll show some pictures in a moment of the line out the door and around the corner, and then even the participation inside. But we were really, really excited about the turnout. There were 154 people, so better than a third of the folks who attended that meeting either had the qualifications or the interest or the skill set to be partnered with someone at the construction skills in the construction skills organization to at least warrant follow-up conversations, and then possible entry into some of the programs that they had. So it was a really good turnout, by all accounts, very successful. Here's a video, just that was a post event video to give you a little sense or flavor of the event for somebody who wasn't aware or didn't participate. Oh, sorry.
I know that guy.
Are we supposed to hear you? Oh, no. Okay.
Sorry, did you say that you can't hear the video?
No. That's why I was asking. I saw you. Yeah, I wasn't sure. We still can't hear.
Yeah, understood. I'm just not sure how to correct that.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I think we
mean,
see the visual of how many people showed up and
Yep.
the impact of the event, so that's fine.
Yeah, and I can share this with you after the fact, and if you want to provide, I can provide you with a link for it.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. So I think since we can't hear, I think we can kind of move forward with.
Yeah, so I'm gonna like you just said, I was just hitting the move on button myself. So here are some stills of the event. If you can see, you can still see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
So if you can see, this is right outside the Tito Puente Educational Complex and the line going all the way down the block. Then we have the folks registered inside. It was a very cold day, so we did our best to move that line indoors so that folks weren't having to suffer outside waiting, especially when they were there trying to do the right thing and get information on how to, better their situation. And then, of course, there are some photos from within inside in the upper left-hand corner. What I'm going to do right now is I am going to invite Michael Garner from our diversity inclusion, DDCR. He's our Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer, to say a few words about the MTA's overall initiatives. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for one moment so that I can then pop up his information, and then I'll turn it over to Michael.
Jim, sorry, Joe, while we're waiting, thank you so much for sharing, and I'll just follow up with you separately if I have any questions. Michael, thank you for presenting. I am hopping off now, but if I have any further questions, I'll feel free to reach out to either of you as we move forward with this project. Thank you. And thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
And Angel, thank you. Okay.
Okay, great,
Can you
thank
see
you.
that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Hey, Joe, it's my understanding that if you want the video to be turned up, the host needs to allow you to turn the video up. I mean,
Oh, the sound
volume.
on the video?
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So let me just say that I'm thanks, Joe, for this opportunity. I'm Michael J. Garner. I'm the MTA's Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and part of my portfolio is the creation and execution of the MTA's MWBE programs. And out of 97 state agencies and authorities, we are currently ranked on number 1 with dollars paid to minority women-owned firms. These are the top 5. And 2 years ago, we paid a total of $772 million, and we achieved 27% of Governor Cuomo's 30% MWBE goals. And basically, if you factor in the funding that we get from the FTA, we are the largest recipient of federal or mass transit funding. There was an additional $304 million paid to minority women-owned firms in 1 year for a total of $1.1 billion. So $1.1 billion in payments were paid to New York State certified MWBE firms in 1 year, the highest in the state of New York, once again, out of 97 state agencies and authorities. And so we take our MWBE programs extremely serious. Of that metric, $400 million were paid to Black and Hispanic-owned companies. That's very, very important to us to make sure that taxpayers' monies are spent in a cost-effective manner, but also spent in an inclusive manner, including minority women-owned businesses. And so I can tell you that once we start the Second Avenue subway, we are going to assign the appropriate goal on those on that project to ensure that New York State certified M&WB firms are going to benefit. And we're going to do a massive outreach in East Harlem and Spanish Harlem to make sure that those businesses who are certified by the state of New York, that they will have the opportunity to be involved in some shape, form, and fashion in the project, meaning that we are going to encourage our large contractor to do or to achieve the low-hanging fruit. That is hire a local security guard firm from Spanish Harlem, open up an account at a hardware store, patronize the local delis and the local restaurants. So not only is this project going to be finished safely, timely, and on budget, but what everybody in the footprint, the businesses, are going to benefit from this project as well. I was telling Joe during a internal meeting that we had that 4 years ago, we built a $214 million bus depot on 146 Lenox Avenue called the Mother Claire Hale Bus Depot. There was 30% MWBE firms that worked in that program. In addition, we gave free OSHA training. And also we called a meeting with the unions and gave preference to those residents in Harlem who were part of the unions to have priority for the jobs on that bus depot. And so we are going to do everything imaginable to make sure that once again, not only is this project going to be finished safely, timely, and on budget, but it's going to be inclusive of all of those businesses that reside in the area where this capital construction project is going to be going on. And so I want to show you a quick video of some of the highlights of our program, highlighting a female-owned business that benefited from as being the MTA's independent engineer. And so this certified minority women-owned firm beat out all of these international engineering companies, and she has been the MTA's independent engineer since 2014 and has a total of $114 million in contracts with the MTA. Joe, if you can show that video.
So I'm going to show the video, and Angel, if you need to turn up the volume on your end, I think you need to control it. Michael indicated on the host end. So I'm going to share the video, and then let's see if we can't get the video to work, because I think it's integral to this one. Yeah, Michael?
Yes.
Can everybody see that?
We can see it, but we can't hear it.
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to find the control, but I'm not able to. I'm gonna give
All right,
up.
hang on one second. I'm gonna pause it, Angel, while you look.
Okay, anyone that knows where it's supposed to be, I'm going. I'll take any instructions. I haven't done this particular feature before. I don't want to hold everyone up.
You want to go to where you see these three dots, or it says more, the word more.
Yes, I checked that, and the option is not there to allow the speaker to.
It doesn't say video or share sound.
Yeah, it does say share sound.
Not on my end.
Okay, let me see. Trying it on my end.
The King are extolled here in the state of New York.
Can you hear that?
At the MTA.
Yes.
We take
Yes.
in the contracts that we are awarding, and we are awarding a record.
So if you
number of
bear with me one
contracts
second, I'm
to
just
New
gonna
York State
restart it so
certified
you get the full video.
MWBE firms.
Yeah, it's only a little,
Dr.
just under
King
3
was
minutes.
focused on social justice and economic opportunities. He was assassinated in April of 1968 because he was marching with the sanitation workers in Memphis, and they were protesting for the achievement of a living wage. And so the principles of Dr. King are extolled here in the state of New York and here at the MTA. We take pride in the contracts that we are awarding, and we are awarding a record number of contracts to New York State certified MWBE firms. Having the ability to take government, take taxpayer-funded projects, and award contracts in an inclusive manner to a pool of businesses who have historically been shut out, that is social justice and economic empowerment.
McKissick & McKissick is the nation's oldest Black-owned design and construction firm. It started with the first ancestor who came to this country as a slave in 1790. And I want to make sure that we continue to deliver on the excellence we have been delivering for over 100 years. Over the last almost 30 years, we have built a business through the MWBE programs. The MTA has been instrumental in our growth. There was a surge and focus on how to get minority and women-owned businesses in prime roles. Opportunity arose to be the independent engineer of the MTA. We put our hat in the ring at an interview. They began to understand that a firm with a leader that looks like me could actually do this work. And they took that chance. Now, we have been the independent engineer for 10 years.
The diversity programs are extremely important because access to government contracts equals home ownership, job creation in those areas that have historically been excluded, better educational opportunities, better healthcare options, and an avenue to the middle class.
It was definitely a game changer. It allows us to control our destiny, to set the cultures of our company, to hire other brown and Black professionals and females. We can now point to the work at the MTA and say, this is our work. We were able to leverage this work to get other prime contracts. Now we have a national transportation group. And this all started with getting a firm foothold in New York that understood the values and the need for diversity with an agency like the MTA. When I think about Dr. King and how that relates to what I'm doing, I feel that I am living my dream.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was a change agent. As individuals, we also have the same ability and opportunity to become effective change agents in focusing on fairness and equity and inclusion. And I'm very optimistic as we move forward that this country will become the great nation that Dr. King had in his dream.
So once again, we are very proud of the success of our minority women-owned business programs here at the MTA. And once again, we are going to work with you to make sure, once again, that this project is going to be completed safely, timely, and on budget, and inclusive of our MWB goals. And we're going to maximize opportunities for those New York State certified MWB firms that reside in your area of Spanish Harlem and East Harlem. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Angel, I believe I heard Chair Mack indicate that she had to leave. So with that, I turn it back over to you or Giselle to moderate questions as you see fit, or if the committee has any questions.
Yeah, Giselle will be running it from there.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. If there's any way for you to share that information in the chat with us, the two videos that you gave, just because the other one didn't have sound, or if you can email that to Angel so he can share.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll send it to him. I mean, I could, now that we learned, somebody educated us on how to get that sound going. I don't know if that was you or who it was, but we learned something new tonight. But in the interest of time, play it again. But I will send it to the commission so you have it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay.
You have one question in the attendees, Giselle, from board member Beverly Pavone.
Okay, Ms. Pavone, go ahead.
Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I hope I'm not getting no feedback. Okay, my question is regarding the slide that you show about property owners that's crucial to this development. Would that be part of the, I know we spoke about in another committee, the elevated transit issue? Is that connected at all?
Ms. Pabon, these two issues are unrelated at this time.
Okay, thank
The Elevate Transit Initiative, is unrelated to the properties identified right now. Doesn't preclude us from at some point, if a developer comes into the Second Avenue Subway Project corridor and would be interested in either taking on some of the work on our behalf or looking for additional, floor ratio in exchange for some transit bonuses and things like that. I mean, we would be open to those discussions, but, for our purposes right now in this project, those properties are not part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you so very much, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So actually maybe two. So the first one in the slideshow, on 120, in terms of the ancillary, the location of the ancillary facilities, on 125th and Lexington, so the former Pathmark site, the Extel site, it highlights the majority of the block except for the firehouse. Is that just, what's under consideration, or is it the expectation that all of that's going to be impacted, or just a portion of it's going to be impacted?
So just a portion will have a permanent impact, and that's where where the Lexington line goes underneath what was the former Pathmark site there.
Mhm.
We're working with the Extel and the developer there, who's the developer there.
Right.
We're in discussion with them now to essentially, as they progress their project, create a box for us there so that we don't have to come back at a later date. And that extending all the way across the block that you saw, what that
Mhm.
indicates is, because we're going to need to do our tunnel boring underneath the entire block there, we're going to need to coordinate with those buildings and have subsurface temporary easements. It's not a permanent taking, but there will be permanent or temporary easements the full length of the block, just because we're going to be underneath their property and we need their permission. Because in theory, their property line extends in perpetuity straight down. There's
Mhm.
really no end to it technically.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we have access agreements in place with all of these folks to do our work. So those are not permanent takings. We're not taking that whole block by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
It's temporary easements and discussions.
Thanks, Joe. This committee hasn't had that land use discussion, right? So just, I wanted to put that on the table just to kind of orient
Yeah,
them.
absolutely. And you know what? We'd be happy to bring in, our TOD group, Bob
Mhm.
Payne and Robert Rickstein, and have a more detailed discussion about that. We're a little bit further away from that, as you all know, but we wanted to make sure between the last committee and this committee that we are touching base and making sure that we've reestablished our lines of communication post-COVID and before folks scatter for the summer. In this new virtual environment, we always have a way of getting connected no matter where we are. So, and obviously you and I and various members of the committee stay in more regular contact. So you always have a way of reaching us if you need us.
Right. And then, more kind of related to the work of this committee. So we talked about jobs, but it would also, since it was referenced earlier, the displacement, a commercial displacement that will happen, direct commercial displacement that will happen as part of the properties that will be permanently taken. Has there been any further discussion or kind of understanding of what if anything can or will be done to make the businesses that are being displaced whole?
So, and I think we've had this discussion in previous committees, and certainly I've had this discussion. There's what we call a ramp, or a real estate acquisition management plan that we are federally required to put together. And we have a draft of that plan, and we're going back and forth with the FTA on that. It'll largely be modeled after the phase 1 plan. But what it dictates is that any properties that we take where there are residential units inside, we need to work with those properties to relocate those with those folks. And then similarly with a commercial establishment, we would work with the commercial establishment to relocate them. And obviously we would hire a third party relocation consultant who would manage all of that for us, because they know how to make it, make it seamless and painless for folks. We would obviously look for similarly sized units, not only in space, but in terms of cost. within the community, because obviously if it's a commercial unit that we're talking about, then they have a following or a fan base or customer dealers who, who frequent their shop. So we try to keep them as close to their original location as possible, given what the market will bear and what the, the available inventory is on similarly sized units. But we do have a plan. We are finalizing that plan, and we're happy to share that plan once it gets blessed by the FTA.
Okay. And is there kind of any estimated time as to when that blessing could be?
Well, first and foremost is that authority to, or that permission to enter into engineering. We have that. We'll be moving further along in that FTA process. And I think the FTA will give us a bit more priority because, right now we have not been a priority for them because we're not moving inside their process. Once we enter into engineering and then we start working towards that fully funded grant agreement, all of these dominoes have to be in place. So, that'll really give us an indication of that things are moving forward once we achieve those two hurdles.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Giselle.
Okay. We can move forward with the agenda, Angel.
Thank you all very much. And thank you, Michael, for joining us and elucidating us on the MTA's overall goals and plans. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Michael. And thanks, Natalia, for the assist. Appreciate it.
No problem. Good night.
All right. Just a second. Let me get the presentation back up. So we're at new business, Giselle.
Okay, is there any new business that we need to discuss? I don't see any. Okay.
If I could, and this isn't new business, but if you would humor me just for a minute. Marissa did speak about the presentation that was given to the Public Safety Committee in regards to the MTA's planned replacement of the Park Avenue Viaduct. I think it's something that we, the Economic Development Committee should begin really thinking about and planning for the future of that, even though it's a couple of years off. The impacts are going to be quite significant. It's a humongous project to replace that entire viaduct. And, I think we're going to come to a bit of a standstill while that's happening. Park Avenue on either side of the viaduct is already, rather limited in terms of through traffic, and will be, from what was presented at Public Safety, will be reduced to at most a lane of through traffic on either side. And at, at other times, no traffic whatsoever. So that's going to, certainly impact all the businesses. Well, there's not too many businesses, but there are businesses there. And if it's your business, it's a huge impact. And even if they're not being directly displaced, like the Urban Garden Center will, they will have, they will feel impact from the space limitations of, imposed on that area by the reconstruction and their equipment and so on. I think it's something that the committee really needs to dig in on and start planning for, and probably start talking about way in advance with a bit of urgency. Because the impact won't just be in the, excuse me, in the La Marqueta area. So it starts from 115th Street, but that first section is 115 to 120. But then there's another section that's on the northern portion of the viaduct from 132nd, I believe, to 129th or 128th. That's full replacement. That's massive, impact. At the northern end, the sanitation garage, which, parks its vehicles underneath the L, that will be displaced. And that will have impact somewhere else. Those big vehicles are gonna have to go somewhere with all that garbage. For those of you that have known me on the community board, I go at sanitation all the time because they're not always perfectly honest. They will have told us many times on the record that they don't keep garbage in their trucks. They absolutely keep garbage in their trucks. If you've ever walked by the sanitation garage on 130th Street, you will see garbage in those trucks. So those trucks being in other parts of the district, that's going to bring whatever that brings to other portions of the district, and it's going to bring impacts to folks that are not accustomed to having those trucks, directly on their doorstep.
Andrew, what do you suggest that we start to do as a committee over the summertime so that we can start to we can invite them maybe come September, we can invite, you know, a representative, whether it's Joe or someone else to come back and speak, and maybe we can weigh in on those topics that you're talking about now.
Sure. So I think you start off by, analyzing what you have there, take a census of what's impacted directly underneath, take a census of what's impacted, kind of on either side of Park Avenue, see what we have, so who has to be reached out to. And besides the MTA, I think we have to talk to EDC and DOT. So the area underneath the L is actually the roadway, technically, on like a land use map. But different agencies have control over them, or a say. And the area of the La Marqueta area, EDC has kind of the say. And then for the rest of it, it's mostly DOT. And I forget, there's one section that might be EDC again, but it's mostly DOT. So I think we have to talk with EDC primarily, but also DOT. I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do with these folks? How are they gonna be displaced? There's a number of parking lots that are under there, and those are small businesses. Those are local some local entrepreneurs that have invested their hard-earned money to operate these businesses and will be displaced. There's a chain or two that will also be displaced. The Henry Carter Center at 122nd Street has 2 or 3 blocks of parking that is, kind of exclusive to that facility, will be displaced. Or will be impacted. So I think it's something that we need to kind of plan for, and just talk through all the different variables and see what can be done, how people are going to be accommodated. Yeah.
Maybe we can start with like a survey or something, just like you said, to see who's going to be like directly impacted, and then take it from there.
Sure. And also going back to the very beginning of the meeting, Carrie King is on the call now, but she's disguised as Carolyn King. In case you wanted to call.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello, I'm the worst. I'm so sorry. I dropped my.
You're the best.
No, oh my God.
I second that.
Oh, I missed everything, but thank you for carrying the torch.
Well, and Carrie could be a great help because she's very connected to all the businesses. But yeah, that's what I think we need to do on that one. And it's going to be, and then also, it's more land use thing, but it's, of course, relates to jobs, also relates to businesses. And as it was referenced earlier, the Las Raíces project has a site abutting the viaduct. And there are other development sites abutting the viaduct: 118th Street, 120th Street, 125th Street, 124th Street. There's quite a few 126th Street. Those are all projects that the owners are like chomping at the bit to get into. And were in some cases slowed down by the pandemic. And depending on how the economy bounces back and how financing is available or not, they're gonna, want to start moving. So there's some things that we as a board have to anticipate, but the land use committee, of course, but economic development, which is a sister committee to any projects, right? As it relates to jobs and economic, movement and stuff. All right, I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, I have no idea where we are in the meeting, but can I just say 2 sentences?
Yes.
Which is, I really think that we should, the MTA, we've asked them many times to make improvements to the viaduct, such as number 1, paint it a brighter color, which would help at nighttime when it's very dark underneath. Number 2, sound modifications to make it not so loud. And number 3, there's this kind of train dust that comes down from the tracks at all times. And numbers 2 and number 3, sound and the train dust, I think are they're not easy fixes. However, painting, they're gonna have to paint this thing anyway. So when they redo it all, it needs to be a brighter color, just like even a light gray. This is a nothing ask. But it will really increase the light can bounce off it a lot better, and so the whole space underneath can be much brighter. And then Angel, we've been back and forth a million times about the lighting of the viaduct, but like lighting and paint, like there needs to be, when this thing comes back, it needs to be a lot better than it is now.
Certainly. They did, the MTA folks presented on the viaduct replacement to the Friends of La Marqueta after the stakeholder meeting that I think you were in. They did reference the recommendation about the painting. They did
Yay.
reference the bit about the sound mitigation. Like it's going to be like, you know, to a degree, right? Because it's a massive heavy train. But with the new track technology, it's going to be better. I don't know if it's going to be all the way better, but certainly better than what's currently there. They did reference that. They did not mention the dust, but they did mention the lighting. And I did press them on, you know, like, because they were saying, like, you know, how can we help while we're being, you know, while we are reconstructing it, what can be added to the project, you know? I'm like, well, you have lights there right now that for no reason that has ever been explained to us are not lit. And he, you know, they referenced, well, that's DOT's. I'm like, whoever's it is, they're gone. Right. And all that, it already exists. And it's just a matter of click. And, you know, I walk by there regularly, like, you know, depending on where I end up parking. And on the blocks where it's lit, it's a humongous difference. And on the blocks where it's not, it's quite dark. It's a massive, you know, behemoth of a thing, that viaduct. There's no light getting through there. No light could possibly get through there. So it's quite dark. And it's not like there's active uses at night. It's just parking lots. So, you know, unlit parking lots get, you know, very dark. And there's really no, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, Carrie, but there's really no reason.
I'm like,
there's really no reason
amen.
for it to not be on, right? So I asked them again. I said, look, well, you know, like if you guys are willing to help us, like you just said, then, you know, help us speak to DOT to get them to turn the thing on.
Amazing. That's great. That's good. At least they're listening to some of it, sort of.
So we'll see. Yeah. And it was them referencing it, to their credit.
Nice. All
Yeah,
right.
so we'll see.
That's good. And then the summertime we can take, like I said, maybe we can take like a quick survey, Carrie, of like just quickly go see, you know, jot down, speak to maybe the business owners again and see just a quick survey of like their ideas, what we think we can put together. And then maybe when we bring them back, or we can email this to them beforehand. And then by the time they come back, they have all our questions, suggestions, concerns, all of that in an email.
That would be great. I feel like the health department did some kind of study of the viaduct maybe 5 years ago. Not like incredible, but you know, about lighting and things like that. So I can ask them too.
Okay. Okay. So if there is no new business, I think we can move on. Is it the roll call, Angel?
There's old business, if anyone has old business, and then roll call.
Old business. Okay. Is there any old business?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So roll call.
Okay. Adem Briha, Marissa Mack, Giselle Malabe,
Here.
Dawn Sanders, Vinnie Torres, Jenny Tromsky, Nye Whitaker. We do not have quorum. Okay. We can still leave. You don't have to stay here until you get it again.
Until we get quorum. Okay. Well, everybody enjoy their summer. Be safe, and we'll connect soon. We'll talk very soon. Okay. Hope to see you guys in the upcoming open streets and, you know, other community events going on. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Night.
Thanks guys so much.
Good night.
Good night.